Man videos, Snake Man here. I am the cameraman, the camera, production team, the lot. Here we go, we have a death adder. It is Acanthopus bottomi, Hoser 1998. Was actually described as a subspecies of Lancasteri, but it appears that Lancasteri may not have been validly described. So it's either a species or a subspecies. I'm not too phased, we don't really care whether it's got my name or someone else's name. The main important with taxonomy is that the animal is in fact properly named. So whether it's Lancasteri or Lancasteri bottomi, doesn't really make much difference, or bottomi. We call them bottomi for the time being, but either way, it's definitely one or other. Having said that, they are a lovely snake. This is a girl snake. Her name Slutsky. The reason is, at the age of about 2.5 or 3 or thereabouts, she gave birth to a load of babies, and the father was actually her brother. This snake, bred by a Victorian breeder by the name of Andrew Lowry, lives down in the southern suburbs. Wonderful bloke, been keeping snakes for a long time. And Lowry, like myself, does not use tongs to pick up snakes. We don't use these metal tongs to pick up snakes. We do use the tongs to feed them, of course. Now, as you see, she's a bit slow eating. She was going quite fast, but once I whack the camera on her, she decides to slow down. Now, of course, when it comes to feeding, you wave a mouse in front of her, she jumps on it real quick, but the rest of the time, she's very casual. She doesn't bite. She's an extremely well behaved, good snake. Death adders generally are. They've got a bad reputation with a name like death adder. Not a good start, but the reality is they are not aggressive killing machines. They are very sensible, very reliable, very predictable snakes. When I started studying these things about 40 years ago, in fact more than 40 years ago, who used to think they were a bit strange, but to me death adders are the normal snake and all the others are strange, because I spent more time with death adders than most of the rest. Doing our reptile shows, we don't really use death adders very much because they're not as spectacular looking as a lot of the other snakes, like your red-bellied blacks and your taipans and things. But I have them here, of course, and we do use them occasionally in the shows, and they are without doubt my favourite snake. I mean, they're not as impressive as puff adders and gaboon vipers from overseas, but in their own way they are. I suppose you probably compare them with some of these smaller dwarf vipers, your berg adders and stuff like that. If you had to compare it with African stuff, there's lots of vipers elsewhere, of course, but they are a lovely Australian snake, and they are obviously quite successful and good at what they do because they don't have any competitors. They well, not many, not in the same way as overseas. We get lots of different vipers and adders and things in one sort of place. Death adders, they tend to be allopatric species wise. You don't get two species in one place, and they seem to be the only like venomous snake that's got this viperine type of body plan, ambush predator, stout bodied sort of snake. Anyway, as you can see, the mouse is nearly gone. It'll move down the body. It's not a mouse actually, it's a wiener rat, but we treat them all the same here. It's the size that counts, the size class. The wiener rat is the same size class as an adult mouse, and they are basically used because we get them a little bit cheaper and we buy them from a number of suppliers. They're all very good, and the only reason we won't name on this video is I'll probably get deluged by people wanting 1s and 2s, and they generally only sell them to people that buy them in like what you'd call commercial quantities. But there is a lot of money to be made out of breeding rodents. There's more money to be made out of breeding rodents than snakes. Many years ago there wasn't much known about breeding snakes. It was a big deal. As a result of books myself and others have written, it's now widely known what needs to be done to breed snakes, and almost anyone can breed snakes with a bit of brain power. It doesn't really take a huge amount now. We know all the stuff about cycling and cooling and all the rest of it. But of course, it doesn't matter how often you breed snakes, it's always good to get babies that you produced yourself. This snake here, of course, has produced her own babies, and the original parents were caught, my belief is from Hayes Creek or thereabouts in Northern Territory, but we're now on to we're a few generations down the track. I think about 4 generations, maybe 5 generations since the originals were bred. And I think, yeah, this guy actually went back to the Northern Territory this year to do a snake handling course. It was quite funny. I'm taking death adders back to the Northern Territory for a course, and of course the area we're at was at Bachelor, where these things used to occur, but They may still be there, but they're not very common now because those horrible cane toads, another one of our government policies gone wrong, have overrun the place, and basically the snakes, they eat the toads, they die, and the big toads eat the small snakes, and it's pretty much a crap position either way. You see the snake's got the rodent down now. I think the tail is just disappearing, and that pretty much sums up the video in terms of the snake. Just remember, if it's not Snake Busters, when it comes to reptile shows, there may be a risk. That snake, I forgot to mention, is devenomized. She's been devenomized for some years, and like all our snakes, we treat them beautifully. Just remember, Snake Busters are Australia's best reptiles. If it isn't us, you are taking a risk.